In Indiana's 30th district, politics don't usually begin in marble halls. It begins in paychecks that don't stretch far enough, in rent that rises faster than wages, and families wondering who exactly is still fighting for them. Tonight's guest isn't a career politician. He has worked fast food, loaded docks, welded metal, managed apartments, and spent years serving Hoosiers struggling to keep a roof over their heads. Because for him, housing isn't a theory, it's a lived experience. And he says the system is broken, not just in practice, but in the laws that keep it broken. So now he's stepping into a race long held by Republican leadership, running to represent Kokomo and the surrounding communities of District 30, with a campaign focused on affordable health care, labor rights, tenant protections, and working class opportunity. The question tonight isn't just who he is, it's whether a working class Hoosier can still break through in the state house that hasn't changed hands in over a decade. Good evening and welcome back to Hold 'em Accountable, the show where we cut through the noise, follow the facts, and keep the focus where it belongs, on the people of Indiana. Tonight we're joined by Jack Chance, a Democratic candidate for Indiana's House District 30, which includes Kokomo and surrounding communities in Howard and Grant counties. Jack is a lifelong Hoosier, raised in Tipton and now living in Kokomo, who comes from a working class background shaped by hourly jobs, community service, and years working in housing with low-income residents. His campaign centers on issues many families in this district feel every day: rising housing costs, access to health care, strong public schools, and economic dignity for working people. He's running to give renters, workers, and everyday Hoosiers a stronger voice at the State House, in a district represented by the same Republican incumbent since 2010. So tonight, we're going beyond the campaign slogans. We're asking what he would actually do, who he'd fight for, and whether he can deliver real change for District 30. Jack, welcome to Hold 'em Accountable.
Thank you so much for having me. And again, my name is Jack Chance. I'm running because too many people in my family, in my district, too many families, we're struggling. We're doing everything right, but we are still falling really far behind. Like you said, I spent my time working in affordable housing, and being in housing, I see firsthand the folks that are living the reality of one crisis away from losing everything. And what I've seen in my years in housing is that there is nobody coming for help. There are folks that work to address the fruit of the bad decisions, but there is no one working to cut down the cursed tree that is our broken system. So I decided it's time to step up and actually do that. I'm getting tired of cleaning up the fruit. It's time to cut the tree down.
District 30 has deep manufacturing roots, especially in Kokomo's auto industry. What concrete steps would you support at the State House to protect good paying union jobs while also preparing workers for the electric vehicle transition?
So Kokomo didn't become a manufacturing town by accident. It was built by union workers who knew that if you worked hard, you ought to be able to raise a family with dignity. My concern with the EV transition is that too often it's being dictated by corporate boardrooms instead of on the shop floors. At the State House, I'm going to push for a Hoosier Jobs First law that says very clearly if a company takes money from Indiana, they need to hire workers from Indiana. Being from District 30, something I've seen specifically with our battery plant that has come in is tax breaks on our backs while folks hire labor from either out of state or out of country, and they get the pay, they get the benefits, and we're stuck footing a tax bill for 50 plus years. And that's not okay. So I believe personally that if any job, if any company takes any money from our state, they need to hire first and prioritize first local labor. On top of that, if they take any state money, they need to guarantee neutrality when it comes to labor organizations. What I have seen actually just this last week, as a potential new 700-acre industrial park is being proposed here in Kokomo. there's excitement all about jobs, but the talk is for a company that is known nationally and internationally for being anti-union, for doing more union busting than the Pinkertons. And to me, having jobs for jobs' sake is not progress that we need to have. I'm all for more manufacturing, and even more manufacturing gearing towards electric vehicles. But we need to make sure that the companies coming in are going to honor our long-standing union tradition and history. Once this town loses its unions, it loses its power to fight for itself, and we will soon go the way of Marion or Anderson, and we'll struggle. So I'm fighting to make sure our unions uh, have strong teeth. And to do that, not only am I going to make sure that we hire local, but I will fight like hell to make sure that we repeal the right to work. It's really just a right to work for less. It gutted unions of their power, and it really gutted Hoosiers, working class Hoosiers, of their opportunity. And I want to repeal that dastardly law that wreaked havoc on our local economy, so that our unions will have power. When our unions will have power, our jobs will be good. And when that happens, our middle class will grow and Kokomo will thrive again.
Howard County families continue to feel pressure from rising property taxes and housing costs. What specific policy changes would you champion to make housing more affordable without hurting local schools and services?
So you're right. Families are being crushed right now. Rent is up, home prices are up, property taxes are up. Meanwhile, we keep pretending that this is just the free market. It's not. This is a manipulated market. It's policy decisions that have led to the circumstances that we're in. So I support targeted property tax relief for people who actually live in their homes, especially for like seniors and working families, while stopping large investors and corporate landlords from gaming the system and shifting the tax burden onto everyone else. On housing, we need to build more starter homes and workforce housing near jobs. We need to fix up our vacant properties. I mean, here in Kokomo, where I live, and I just happen to be very lucky and live on one of the most beautiful streets in town. It's called the Old Silk Stocking District. And as you walk up and down the street, there are beautiful homes, historic homes, empty. Okay. No plans, no sign of movement, no sign of growth. They're just dying. It's not okay, especially when we are struggling with an increased amount of homelessness in our district and in our state. So we need to build again. We need to build more of those starter homes, more workforce housing. But I also I want to undo some of the bad decisions made in the 1970s and 1980s with redlining. I want to make it easier for for landowners to build not just these big sprawling massive complexes, which often is what's triggered in folks' minds when we talk about affordable housing. I want to just make housing more affordable by providing more in the market. So I want to make it easier to build duplexes and triplexes, mother-in-law suites, little things that can provide more housing. Because what we know from economics is when you increase the supply, cost goes down. But we've set up a system right now where the cost of housing is almost guaranteed to be too damn high simply because we can't build enough. So let's just build enough. Let's stop looking at answers to problems that they faced 50 years ago and look at what we can do better now. And I think it's providing more housing.
Greentown and Swayze represent smaller rural communities with different needs than Kokomo. How would you make sure that rural infrastructure, broadband access, and emergency services aren't overlooked in state funding decisions?
So I come from Tipton, but I spent, which is a small town, in and of itself. But most of my family is kind of from the Arcadia and Cicero area. I know what it's like to live in a small town, and I know what it's like to look at areas like Fishers or Carmel and wonder, why is my town so run down when we have just as, I hate to say quality people, but when we have Hoosier. Every person is a quality person. When we have people here with dignity, why is it that our town is run down? We pay taxes. We have lives. We have value. Um, Coming to Kokomo, even though Kokomo is a much bigger city, it's still very much that same feel. We aren't Carmel. We aren't Westfield. We aren't Noblesville. And it feels like the state is intent on reminding us of where our place is by ensuring our roads continue to crumble, hospitals close, schools suffer. And it's not just Kokomo. It's, as you mentioned, it's Greentown, it's Swayze, it's Jerome, it's Center. It's all these tiny little communities that are overlooked, some until election season and some even during. I mean, I'm representing Swayze, whose voting station was taken away, a town of hundreds of people voting disenfranchised. That's not okay. So I plan on advocating for policies. No, basically, I call it the no more excuses. We have areas of our state with infrastructure and benefits out of this world, in comparison to some of our rural communities. And I believe that it's time we look at priorities and say, okay, well, maybe we stop doing some of these next level investments in areas like Carmel, Westfield, the heavily developed, the quick and moving, and redistribute some of these resources to these smaller communities that still have people with lives worthy of dignity, that are still families raising children in small towns, that are still the base of the Democratic and the Republican Party, people that have just been overlooked and ignored. We've been told to wait our turn. And I mean, Derek, I'm 30 and I still have yet to see some of the small towns that have my heart get their turn. And I'm starting to believe that we will never get our turn unless someone like me goes to the State House and refuses to be ignored.
Public education funding and teacher retention remain major concerns across the district. What would you do differently from current state leadership to support teachers and keep neighborhood schools strong?
So this is one of the clearest differences between me and current state leadership, and between myself and the candidates I'm running against in the Republican primary, or on the Republican side, I would say. I want to completely end the school voucher system as we know it. Uh, my belief from the Indiana State Constitution is that it is wrong. The Indiana State Constitution Bill of Rights clearly states that no money shall be drawn from the Treasury and given to any religious or theocratic institution. And yet, in this state, there are folks that are able to get these vouchers and attend religious private schools that have no mandate to serve every Hoosier, that have no guarantee of serving every Hoosier. That's wrong. It's not only wrong to drain our schools, but it's wrong on a simple, fundamental constitutional level. It is black and white. It should not happen. And I've heard the argument of folks that push for school choice. And I'm not going to say that I don't understand. I do. The issue is, they claim that we need school choice because our public schools are suffering. And I agree. Our public schools are suffering, but our public schools are suffering not just because they're public schools. It's not just by nature of being a public school are they suffering. They are suffering by design. They are struggling on purpose. The state house wants it that way so that people and voters would have that thought that, well, maybe we deserve something different. We deserve a constitutional answer, and the constitutional answer is to adequately fund our schools. Just like with the broadband issue, attending a public school here in Indiana, I graduated from Tipton High School, saw traveling around in sports, I saw the disparity between Tipton High School and Carmel. And I hate not to just pick on Carmel, but that's my lived reality and experience. That's a quick point of reference. And I know there's other places in this state that are just as nice and are just as luxurious, and I think it's just as wrong. The fact is there are schools struggling, and while there are schools in luxury. So I think the state needs to adopt a method of school funding, a formula that quits rewarding an area just for its high wealth and adequately and equitably distributes the resources so that every Hoosier school is of an extremely high quality and standard, not just a select few.
Healthcare access is uneven across District 30, especially for mental health and addiction treatment. What policies would you push to expand care locally rather than forcing residents to travel, say, to IU North?
Yeah. So healthcare is one of the biggest pillars of my campaign. Here in Kokomo, specifically, like we don't even have a city ambulance system. Our Republican government gutted it and hasn't brought it back. They haven't done anything. So during the summer months, especially, it's really sad. You'll see on our local, scanner groups of Person reported unresponsive. They call for EMS, and then shortly later they update coroner requested. That happens all day long, and unfortunately, it's a lot of people that suffer from addiction. I know that my stepfather suffered from addiction, and we lost him to addiction. I know what it's like to experience that really long call, that wait time. Even though we lived a stone's throw away from a fire department, it still took an extremely long time just to get a response. And that wasn't the reason he passed. But I know his case is just one of a few that were lucky. There are countless people here in Kokomo and Greentown, Swayze, all over that are suffering. And they're not addicts because they want to be. I believe people in this district are suffering so much economically that we're in despair. And I believe where despair is, addiction will grow. So I don't want to advance policies that are just going to focus on addressing folks in the moment of mental health. I want to address it at its very root. Um, I want to make sure that the jobs that we have here are quality jobs that pay enough to live, not just have a living wage, but a dignified wage. We don't want just bread. We want roses too. I want to make sure that our workers here, when they leave work, they're not just strapped with the constant the thought that they worked an entire day's wage just to give it away to their landlord or to NIPSCO or Duke Energy. Because when that's your reality, no wonder people are using and people are in despair. I get it totally. So I do want to right now, I want to fight for funding to our local health departments to help address people that are in the throes of addiction right now. But I also, right now, want to make sure that we address the root, and that is to ensure that our jobs pay well. We have health insurance, and folks aren't left in this constant state of despair like we have been for the last 20 years under Republican supermajority.
Many voters feel disconnected from state government, regardless of the party. How would you keep residents of Kokomo, Greentown, and Swayze actively involved in your decision making once elected?
So I plan to be the most annoying state representative ever. Um, as I've campaigned around this district, people might know the name of their representative, maybe, but they don't know who he is. They don't know what he looks like. They couldn't point him out of a crowd, and that's not okay. This is a person that's supposed to represent you and your family and your livelihood and your future in arguably one of the most important chambers for Hoosiers. I mean, that's where they raise our taxes. That's where they make laws to imprison us. That's where this session they're trying to give the governor his own private army. These decisions are being made by folks that most people in this district, they have no idea who they are. So I plan to be the representative that hosts regular town halls. I want to regularly be actively involved in this district and not just Kokomo. Unfortunately, this district was drawn in such a way to make sure that the seat of power remains Kokomo. And if you win Kokomo, you win the district. But I don't believe that's right. I believe that the people in our rural area deserve a voice just as much as the folks here in the city limits. That's why I'm already planning. I have planned I call them the People's Town Hall, taking place in Greentown this year or this month, Swayze next month. We had one in Kokomo with Blythe Potter a few weeks back. But that's not going to stop with the campaign, and it's not going to stop win or lose. I want to be involved, and I want to give Hoosiers, especially here in District 30, an avenue where their voice can and will be heard. In Kokomo, and actually one of my Republican opponents, Ray Collins, was the president of city council. I do believe he's now the vice president of the city council. One thing, if you would ever attend a Kokomo city council meeting, you would find is most often Ray proudly quoting the open door law and reminding people in attendance that they have the right to be seen but not heard. Regularly reminding us that we only get to speak because they allow it, and it's a privilege that they've extended to us. I grew up in a Hoosier home that taught that I have the freedom of speech, and that means that the government will hear me. Not that you might get to or maybe want to, is that you will hear me. And unfortunately, the Republican government has decided that they don't have a need to hear people. So I've created this alternative, the People's Town Hall, not only to campaign for my own benefit to win in November, but to make sure that there is that place and that media, so Hoosiers can have their voice heard by me, by people like Blythe running for Secretary of State, or soon to be Jackson Franklin as we partner with him running for U.S. Congress. We are going to have the place, the location, the venue, the media, the opportunity, the time, the heart, and the ears ready to hear, not just hear, but give you ideas on how we're going to act on making Indiana.
Economic development often focuses on attracting big employers. What's your plan to support small businesses and family farms that form the backbone of this district?
So, economic development in Indiana has been upside down for a very long time. But we roll out the red carpet for billion-dollar corporations while Main Street is told to just kind of figure it out and told that, capitalism doesn't mean government involvement. What I have found to be the case here is folks in government tend to believe in brutal capitalism for the small guy, including small business, but corporate socialism for billion-dollar companies. And I think it's time we end that right now. So I want to kind of put ideally there would be a moratorium on billion-dollar handouts or handouts to billion-dollar corporations and reassess what small and Hoosier-owned companies could benefit more. I would rather see, a $1 billion tax break being given to a Hoosier-owned local business than some out-of-state or international mega corporation that really doesn't care anything at all about how we make it, how we live or survive. And to start small business, I want to make it cheaper and easier and more streamlined to start a small business. I want to make sure I would love for the state to invest in micro grants and small micro loans. uh, it's been extremely successful in other places around the country and around the world. Um, and I think that on a small scale, like the state of Indiana, I think we really could make waves and bring back that mom and pop vibe that I remember even from my childhood 20 years ago. Um, and specifically on farms, I'm glad you've mentioned that. Something that is happening on a national scale is an assault on our farmers. Uh, Mega multinational corporations and some multi-state corporations are gobbling up our farmland at an extremely quick rate, and it's horrible. Between failed trade deals out of Washington that are putting strain on our farmers, to now these very predatory capitalist engines coming in and buying up distraught farms instead of helping, family farms that have been around for hundreds of years, or buying them up and consolidating and liquidating. I read a report recently that it's caused an uptick of near 30 to 40% in farmer suicides in states like Iowa. And I know Indiana is just as rural, and I know if it's happening there, it has to be happening here. And that breaks my heart. So I would love for the state of Indiana to step in and say that we are going to stop all multinational and major corporations from buying up our farmland as is right now. We can talk about it, allowing it again in the future, but for now it needs to stop. And what we need to do is work on a program where Hoosier farms feed Hoosier families. One, it'll be more affordable for Hoosier families, but I believe partnering with our Hoosier farmers and subsidizing loss for the first few years until the market shifts to this more local pipeline, I think helping them through that and then establishing the from Hoosier farm to Hoosier table pipeline uh, will help eliminate the desire for some farmers to sell out.
Indiana continues to debate energy policy, from new renewables to utility costs. What balanced approach would you take that protects both local jobs, long term affordability for residents, and protecting the farmland from being eaten up by huge solar farms?
I'm a Democrat that is in favor of green energy just as much as the next guy, but I'm not in favor of green energy if it means starving our children. And unfortunately, that's been the answer, is to put up these massive solar fields or massive wind fields right in the middle of or on top of farms that should be feeding our families. We have plenty of roof space here in Indiana where we could put probably more solar panels than we could in some of these massive solar fields. I believe we should be prioritizing rooftops, incentivizing homeowners to buy their own, uh, with the caveat that the solar panels we do buy are not just going to put money into the pocket of China or Chinese companies. I want to make sure that when we do invest in solar fields, that they are produced by American-made, union backed companies. Uh, so again, we're not just putting money into the pockets of the Communist Chinese Party. Um, Now, as far as affordability, we have the IURC, which is supposed to regulate utilities, but instead, they tend to just be buddies and rubber stamp rate increases anytime that they're asked to. It's kind of insane, really. Uh, I've been following along. NIPSCO has kind of a growing backlash up in northern Indiana, where folks are getting $500, $700 bills, and sometimes gas usage is only $100 or $200 of that. And the rest of it's a delivery fee for pumping gas through a pipe to my home. You never start a frickin' engine. You never turn tires. You never get out of a vehicle, but you're going to deliver something to me for hundreds of dollars. That's not okay. I mean, there's folks with vacant homes with $0 gas usage and still paying nearly $100 in delivery fees. That's not okay. And it's happening right underneath the nose of those intended to regulate us. So part of my solution is to abolish the IURC and to move its authority to the General Assembly through a bipartisan, bi-chamber committee where both members of the House and Senate and both parties sit on this committee, and they're the ones that are responsible for approving rate increases, but also for governing the salaries of utility companies that are serving Indiana. Duke Energy, the CEO makes $106,000 a day, every single day, 365 days a year. That is more than over half of my senior citizen community makes in an entire year. That's not right. And yet there are folks in my community who have recently looked me in the eye and said, Jack, I'm hungry, but I will pay my light bill. Jack, I'm hungry, but I will pay my rent. That's not okay either. So I'm moving that we abolish the IURC because it hasn't done a damn good job of regulating, move its authority to the General Assembly so that every time the rate increases are approved, voters have an opportunity to show their approval or disapproval the next time at the ballot box. Uh, but then also long term, I believe it was one of the worst decisions selling off our public infrastructure to private gain. It's not fine. Duke Energy they profited about almost $1 billion here in Indiana in 2024. Almost $1 billion. They profited about $5 billion across the entire country and paid an effective tax rate of 9%. 9%. I made a 1/10 of that, and I paid 22% effective tax rate. So I believe that a lot of the issue with our affordability is not necessarily it's not by accident. They are squeezing us, increasing their profits. I mean, they profited $500 million here in Indiana the year before they asked for I believe it was around a 17 to 20% rate increase, which would increase their overall profit, they estimated, according to their own papers, by about another $500 million. So billions upon billions upon billions for what? For what and why? It's not fine. So I believe long term, the state needs to work with local municipalities to start buying back that infrastructure. Uh, and I know it's a feat, but I believe that the billions of dollars in profit that Duke continue, and it's not just Duke, but Duke, NIPSCO, AES, uh, that they continue to squeeze out of us, if that was back in the hands of the public and invest properly, and then, not have to charge $700 for 1 month of gas usage, I think that is the answer.
If elected as a Democrat in a Republican led legislature, how would you build bipartisan relationships to actually deliver results for District 30 rather than just gas protest votes.
As much as I love to protest, you're right. Just protest votes don't do really anything. What I am very thankful for is during this campaign, I'm realizing that the average person on both sides of the aisle, and it can even be folks on the far sides, they generally want the same thing. They want good jobs. They want good schools. They want hospitals to be open and accessible when they need them. They want a bright future. They want to know that their children are safe and are going to be okay when they're gone. It's very basic things. And I'm the kind of Democrat that will focus on those kitchen table issues that I feel like, unfortunately, our party on a national level has abandoned for a very long time. There was a study that said in 2024, only 13% of ads run by Democrats for federal elections discuss the economy or jobs. And yet, the economy and jobs are the number one thing in 2024 that voters wanted to hear about. So I want to give voters the choice and the option of a Democrat that is talking about the economy and is talking about jobs. And I believe by being that kind of Democrat, when I get to the state house, there sure will be some Republicans there who won't work with me. No matter what I do, I could work with them on a bill to say the sky is blue. And because of the letter by my name, they will never side with me. And that's fine. I don't really want them to work with me. That's okay. I
It's
don't need
cerulean.
them. Do what?
It's cerulean.
Yeah, that would be the argument. Um, but I'm interested in working with the numerous Democrats that are there, and with I believe there's a good number of Republicans that are there, and if they are approached with legislation that's not just drenched in far left ideology and is rather rooted in kitchen table issues that real working class people care about, not just a culture war circus, the things that'll pay our bills and feed our children and house our seniors. I believe those are the types of acts that I'm going to get a lot of work together with on the Republicans and Democrats there in the House.
For voters who may not follow politics closely, what is the single biggest change you hope families in Kokomo, Greentown, and Swayze would feel in their daily lives after your first term?
I want people to feel heard. At the end of my first term, I want people to look back and say, wow, I saw him everywhere. He heard me. He answered the call. He responded to my email. He helped. He helped with this. He helped with that. He showed up to this town hall. He showed up to this city council meeting. I want people to know that there's a representative that actually genuinely cared. I woke up every single day with a fighting spirit. I've been saying I'm the fighting chance. Um, that's what I want people at the end of my first term to say. We had a fighting chance to stand up for us and to stand for the everyday average person.
Oh, hi there. Do you live in Indiana? Are you watching this video? Come on in. I'm Blythe Potter. I'm running for Secretary of State. I'm a veteran, small business owner, a mom, and a lifelong Hoosier. I'm building a grassroots campaign focusing on talking to the people, not the establishment. So help me spread the message that Hoosiers deserve better from our elected officials. Oh, hey, before you go, introduce yourself in the comments and share this with a fellow Hoosier. Bye now.
Jack, we've talked about policy, priorities, and what you want to bring to the State House. But now it's time for the part of the show where the answers get shorter. The stakes fell a little higher. This is where there is no filibuster, no press release, no hiding behind talking points, just instinct, conviction, just a simple choice. Hold it or fold it. I'm going to give you a series of statements. If you agree, you hold them. If you don't, you fold them. And if you need a sentence or two to explain, you'll get it, but keep it tight because voters don't get 5-minute answers at the grocery store. Are you ready? Indiana should fully fund public schools before sending any additional money to private school voucher programs.
Hold them.
The state legislature should strengthen tenant protections, including limits on excessive rent hikes and clearer eviction standards.
Hold them.
Legalizing marijuana in Indiana is both an economic opportunity and a criminal justice reform issue.
Hold 'em.
Right to work laws have weakened wages and bargaining power for working Hoosiers.
Hold 'em.
Healthcare in Indiana should move toward universal or publicly guaranteed coverage.
Hold 'em.
The electric vehicle transition must include binding job protections for auto workers in places like Kokomo.
Hold 'em.
Property tax relief should prioritize homeowners and seniors over large corporate tax incentives.
Hold 'em.
The state should expand mental health funding, even if it requires shifting money from other budget areas.
Hold 'em.
Bipartisanship is only meaningful if it produces real policy change, not just polite conversation.
Hold 'em.
If elected, your first responsibility is to the people of District 30, even when it conflicts with party leadership.
Hold 'em. I will work with anyone, but I only work for the people in District 30.
Jack, I want to thank you for being here tonight, for stepping into the conversation, for answering the hard questions, and for putting your name on the ballot in a time when public service feels more like a battlefield than a calling. Running for office isn't easy, not in Indiana, not anymore. It means long nights, tough scrutiny, and the quiet understanding that win or lose, you've chosen to stand up in front of your community to say, I'm willing to be accountable. That matters because democracy doesn't survive on comfort. It survives on participation, on courage, and ordinary people deciding the system still belongs to them. District 30, Kokomo, Greentown, Swayze, and the families in between, they deserve real conversations about jobs, housing, healthcare, and schools, not slogans, not noise, not politics as performance, just truth and the work of trying to build something better together. So, Jack, thank you for bringing your story, your ideas, and your willingness to serve to this table tonight. We appreciate you being here. And everyone watching at home, remember this. The future of Indiana won't be decided by pundits or party leaders or the loudest voices online. It will be decided by you at the ballot box, in your community, and in the simple choice to stay engaged when it would be easier just to tune out. Because democracy is not a spectator sport, it's a responsibility. So stay informed, ask questions, and as always, hold them accountable.